Uduasha City, where the sun is a mirror and the moon a shadow, where dancers cavort in forbidden operas, making love to forgetting and flame, where the wealthy play at war with silver swords and silken sashes, where the people mine the dead heart of a burning star for cannonballs and pipework, and where 1,000 secrets hide in a forest of paper and ink. Here, the 5 keybearers reside, the 5 who know the secrets of the broken gates of death. 5. 5 only. There is no 6th spire, forlorn and forgotten in the desert. There is no one who looks to the displaced, the poor and destitute and landless, whose ancestry has been stripped from them by foreign looms and foreign sparkcraft, and no one has ever heard of the House of Endings. But this is their story. Their roots pulled up and burned, they stand in filth up to their necks, and that is precisely why they must keep their heads ever high. Welcome to Uduasha, immigrant. May it fear the name of the house you will build. Welcome to Desperate Attune, an actual play podcast about characters with their identities in peril, played by an international cast devoted to fiction-first gaming, collaborative world-building, and complex character drama. Welcome to the second season of Desperate Attune, called The House of Endings. I'm Prince. I'm taking over the host role from Tree for this second season. And to all our new listeners, a brief explanation of what this podcast is about. If you played Blades in the Dark, you're probably familiar with this, but a lot of our listeners aren't. So here's a brief overview of our story and setting. So, Desperate Attune is an actual play podcast of Blades in the Dark, a role-playing game by John Harper. It's set in a dark fantasy world of dystopian capitalism in which the rich fight each other over scraps while the world is, it's dying. So basically, 19th century Britain trying to cope with a massive climate crisis is kind of the vibe of the setting. The sun is in embers in a steel grey sky. The wilderness is a vast desert full of ghosts and monsters. It's not fun to be there. It's barely inhabitable. And humanity is huddling in cities trying to sustain itself using electricity, which is called electroplasm, in most of the cities in the setting. But our story is set in Uduasha, which is a city built around a fallen star, protecting the citizens from ghosts and other dangers. And there's a big mirror that uses the star to channel light to everyone, as there isn't much light in the sky. And we have made our own version of Uduasha, a labor of love, inspired by cities of South Asia and set in a nation called Iruvia, which is a loose collection of city-states brought together by the pressures of the Akorosi Empire, which would like to colonize the Iruvian states, but it hasn't quite succeeded. So this is how we're interpreting the Iruvia part of the setting for our game. And if you want to know more about the game itself, you can check it out. It's called Blades in the Dark, but just as a casual listener, when we roll dice, 6s mean a success, 4 or 5 mean a success, but with some consequence, and 1 to 3 generally means that things go very, very wrong, especially if the roll is desperate, which is why we are called Desperate Attune. And when we talk about devil's bargains, that means accepting a bargain to make success more likely. So I think that's, if you're not familiar with the game, that's a brief introduction to the rules, just to make sense of what we'll be talking about. Season 2 is called The House of Endings, and it will focus on a group of immigrants from the city of Kethris, fleeing their homes and arriving in Uduasha, which is the largest, wealthiest, and oldest of the Iruvian cities. But what precisely this means for the identity of the characters, we will play to find out. And so, I'm Prince. I am not South Asian, but I have been entrusted with this story. I'm from Sweden, and I go by he, him pronouns. And with me are the players, starting with Tree. Hello, Tree.
Greetings, salutations, and good morning to those people who are listening to this in the morning. I have been informed that all of our hellos need to be as deranged as possible. So let me tell you, you better buckle up. I'm Tree. That's how many people on the internet know me. People who know me in real life also know me as Soumithri. I am a person. I was thinking, what profession should I attribute to myself? And I realized that it's tricky. I'm from South Asia. I'm in fact from South India. I live in a city called Hyderabad, and I go by any pronouns. Pronouns do not work for me anyway, so you may as well do what you like. I design, run games in this system that we play now, which is called Forged in the Dark, but also other systems. The other thing that I do is that I make and sell clothes. It is unlikely that by the time you listen to this, that I will have made any clothes for you to buy. However, when that changes, I will absolutely shill it on this podcast because marketing is very important.
I like how your intro kind of implies that your profession is South Asian.
Yes.
I am a professional South Asian.
Yes. I also like how you exclaim pronouns don't work on me as if you're a comic book villain from the 50s. Pronouns don't work on me. All right. Moving on to Emma. Hello, Emma.
Hello, my name is Emma, also known as Emma. I am I am a writer. I use she/her pronouns. I'm from the Netherlands. My instinct is to say, and I am playing this and that character, but the fact is that I don't know what I'm playing yet because we are going to see us playing a new Forged in the Dark system called Session Zero, where you play to find out who you are playing, which is a lie. And the way that I have turned what seemed to be a very normal introduction into a deranged introduction anyway.
One must only be in awe of the skill that it takes. Like, wow.
I think you have perfectly introduced yourself by being meta deranged. That is somehow very new, Emma.
I think you implied that you use she/her pronouns from the Netherlands.
They are handcrafted in the Netherlands, as it happens.
Yes.
Only zij haar voornaamwoorden.
Okay, excellent. You're doing good on the introduction so far. Aadiyat, do you want to go next?
No.
Okay.
Compel him.
Well,
but if I must, I'm Aadiyat, also known as Soap. I use he/him pronouns. I'm from Bangladesh, and should I say anything else? No, I think that covers everything. That you need to know about me.
Excellent.
Aadiyat just proving how non-deranged we can be if we so choose.
Yes.
So that everyone knows this is an active choice.
Yes. Excellent. And finally, Klow.
My name is Zoheb. I'm from Bangladesh, but I live in Norway, and I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry.
What that accent even?
That was Zoheb's really terrible Italian accent that he once used, and then made that entire one shot about Italians.
Okay. So you are not Italian.
No, I'm not Italian.
He's as Italian as Augustus Khan is French.
Okay.
I am reflecting on my failings as I say I'm not Italian.
Okay, so we have established your nationality is not Italian. Go on.
Yes, I am Bangladeshi. I am an academic by profession. I have been living in various countries in Europe. Currently, I'm living in Norway, where I will probably be living for the foreseeable future. And let's see what else. Aside from being an academic, I'm also a writer, occasional game designer, occasional artist, this and that. I edit this podcast alongside Prince. And yeah, I think that's about it, really. Am I missing anything that anyone would consider a crucial piece of information?
Your name? I don't think you said it out loud. I think I called you it.
I'm sure I did. But I said it in Italian, so perhaps it did not scan. Yeah, my name is Zoheb.
Good.
All right. So that's us. That's our crew. Those of you who are with us from season 1, thank you for being with us from season 1. Those of you who are new, thank you for being new. Nailed it.
Thank you for being new, guys. Yeah, yes. Great. Fantastic.
Thank you for being with us. Yeah, so today we are going to talk a little bit about what we are going to play in the House of Endings. And what we have established is that we are not going to be playing Udwashan natives this time. We are going to be playing refugees from Kethris. And the story of Kethris is, I think we basically decided this, that you were farmers, and then the rent and taxes were to pay, and you couldn't redeem them. And so you got kicked out as Kethris modernized under your old landlords.
Sorry,
And-
are we meant to be able to redeem rent? Is that... Have I been
Uh-huh.
doing it wrong all this time?
Yes. I mean, pay them off. You could use redeem in that sense. It's one of those weird words that can be the end
Oh!
itself. But
Okay,
anyway,
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Go on. Yeah.
yes.
The redemption of rent.
Yes, the redemption of
Mm.
rent. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, you know,
You might
you had
say
landlords,
rent,
they chased you out, and
Debt redemption.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bond
yeah.
between you is not necessarily being family as in our last season. The bond between you is being from roughly the same place, which may mean your family. And I think, Klow, you had some idea of like what ties the crew together is that you will have the same surname, but it's just kind of one of those like everyone from the village has this surname.
Mhm.
So, you know, as say, I don't know, Da Vinci, but
Yeah.
not Italian, as we have established. So
Yes, indeed.
I propose this surname be Uncutum.
Oh man.
Ankatam.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's wow, holy shit. The energy there is a lot. Khatam is of course the word for ending in many Indian languages. I suspect the root is Sanskrit, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Oh no, actually the root may be Arabic for Khatam.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I take it back. So I guess we are Unkatam. Unkatam, of course, in my accent sounds like the opposite of ending because you just put un in front of a word. So that's also quite funny.
Well,
like
every
redeeming.
ending contains a beginning.
Yes,
So-
indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's AN, as in Anrakis, Annexus, and so on.
Yeah,
Yes.
this being the prefix for the demon houses of Udwasha. For those who are not familiar, the demon houses of Udwasha, there are 5 of them, or maybe there are 6 of them, and they all have names
Yes.
starting with An.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm with you. This makes perfect sense.
Indeed. Ankatam. Okay, yeah. And let's discuss a little bit about what sort of vibes we want for this campaign and what sort of vibes we want for our characters. So, this is going to be a story of like we are cleaving more to the traditional Blades in the Dark formula here of our characters are poor and need money badly. I think that's true from the outset. And we will not be playing with your arrival to Udasha because the game assumes that you have a little bit of connections, that you have laid down a little bit of roots.
Mhm.
But we will probably pick up our story where you're still relatively, fresh in the city. We haven't discussed it, but I assume that we are going to set this in Bundervest since that is the immigrant district of the city. But maybe it will be some other district. We'll see how it pans out. But that's sort of been my thinking, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, but
Mhm.
I'm flexible.
Yeah, I like Bundervest, mostly because there is a farming district in Udawasha, right? But we are not from Udawasha.
No.
So I think it's an interesting tension to kind of like have that where it's like there are already people here who are very like local to the place, making food, fishing, farming, agriculture, all of this stuff. And we are not them. So
yeah, it's their land, not yours. So
yeah, exactly. Like some bureaucrat may have like said something like, "Oh, we can just put them in Gili Gali, which is the farming district," and that bureaucrat summarily was, exiled to the ass end of nowhere. I don't know where that is in Aruvia, but they were sent there.
Yeah, I mean, most farmers care about owning their land, so
Yes,
yeah,
indeed,
and do not
Yeah.
appreciate it.
We also really cared about owning our land.
Yes, you also did.
we still own it. Okay, I refuse to accept anyone who says we don't own it.
Yeah. We should probably,
Even though
I don't know if we
Wait
talk
your
about it
turn.
today, But like we
Yeah.
should talk about like what exactly is the nature of our disposition, like what happened, and how do the Uduashan elites figure into the story? Because I'd quite like the idea of being pissed off at them as well. But we can
Yes,
talk
I
about
agree.
that.
But I'm also
point.
like really curious about, and this is a somewhat different thing, is what is a farm in this world?
Yeah.
Especially a rural farm.
I was thinking
Yeah.
rice paddies because that's what I'm used to, but it could be something else.
I have
No,
some
but
ideas
also
there.
like there's no sun.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
there's outside the cities there is no
There are
sun,
ghosts.
so
Mhm.
we haven't
moss
established a lot.
fields.
Yeah, we haven't established a lot about Kethris, which is probably
Yeah.
like how do the Kethrises solve this, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
LG patties. Yes.
Yeah.
Ah,
Also, there it's. I mean, your vision of this can vary, but usually, like in the book, at least, it says that there is a little bit of sun, like the shards of the sun and so on. So I don't know how much that um, interacts with agriculture in any realistic sense, but it's not necessarily the case that it's like plunged in total darkness.
yeah. It's also the case that Iruvia has volcanic soil, so it's much more fertile than
Yes.
other places in the Shattered Isles.
Oh yeah.
That is important. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, Emma, you were.
I do think the original Blades in the Dark book does heavily imply that there's not enough sun for like our world's farming to go on without without problems. Like there's a lot of growing mushrooms in your basement and making plants that emit their own light so that other plants can grow by it.
Yeah.
I agree with
I
that.
think I think this is partially why I was thinking also that like something like fishing would just like naturally come up because hopefully the fish have solved the problem of how to live without sunlight. So if we just eat them, then maybe we don't have to worry too much.
I've got an idea for how to get light. If Eruvia is a volcanically active place, maybe there are cracks in the ground like elsewhere. Like Uduasha is a dormant volcano, but there could be like cracks in the ground with lava flows and such, and you use the light from that to grow your plants.
We use
Oh, yeah.
lava light.
You use lava light.
I have a crazy idea for maybe another way that the Kethrisi farming works, which is maybe the rice paddies have a symbiosis with some sort of natural bioluminescent thing that, you guys have just grown up around, like
Fuck yeah.
bioluminescent trees or something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should have both.
Bioluminescent. Yes, of course. We shouldn't choose.
Yeah, we should have both. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Because like the thing is, the bioluminescent trees grow best on the volcanic soil of Kethris.
Yeah.
And I feel like probably like we've got our we do have our seeds, and we could try and grow them here, but it's just not working in the same way, right?
When Prince said bioluminescent trees, I was the immediately what I thought of was a mangrove forest with bioluminescent mangrove, and in the water you're also growing, like you're growing rice in the water as well. So
Yeah.
it is.
That's extremely cool.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay. How about this for a pitch?
So forget the lava. It's we are that's why we're in Bundervest now, like near the water. It reminds us of home.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. How's this for a pitch? And we can repeat it for Tree when it's back. So Kethris is important because this sort of like ecosystem is not the standard for Euruvia. It's very special. And that's why it was important enough to concentrate a large agricultural community in Kethris. However, it's not just the tenant farmers and so on who just kind of like own the land and so on. It's been consolidated by a sort of like aristocracy. They call themselves the gentlemen, which recalls Bangladesh's Bengal's like Bhadralok society, which literally means gentlemen, which essentially were landlords and so on, and like the respectable upper class. And the gentlemen kind of like, of course, like largely left agriculture up to the farmers who would just do the agriculture and just give them their fairly exorbitant share of it. But like, I guess there was actually a fair bit more autonomy. But perhaps what really changed over time was the introduction of like radiant energy. Because yeah, I mean, technically one doesn't need radiant energy with all this that we have in Kethris. But radiant energy definitely, one, improves the productivity of food, and two, it also very conveniently kind of like removes the need for like farmers who have like a lot of like tradition, a lot of like experience and so on with traditional farming methods. You can
Yeah.
just replace all of that with technology and like, fairly precarious labor.
Yeah. So you got dispossessed by mechanized farming, basically.
Yeah. And we need some spicy addition for like how that is also Uduasha's fault somehow.
Yeah. It was obviously sponsored by Uduasha. Uduasha has a project of turning Iruvia into a nation, like from a collection of nation states. And so I think that what they did was a very classic maneuver. They sold very generously this farming equipment to the gentlemen of Kethris. And they sold it on a very generous buy now, pay later deal. And now the gentlemen are basically all indebted to the great houses of Uduasha, which is why obviously they had to adapt. It's first they got more productive, and then it was time to pay back, and then they had to fire people because now they can't afford all these tenant farmers anymore.
I hate this. This is great.
Yeah. Economics, the darkest art.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
And where does radiant energy come from? It comes from Ekoros.
Yeah.
So are the noble houses in Uduasha also fucking themselves over? Yes, a little bit. That makes it even more wonderful.
Yeah.
They probably are, but they funded this, and when you fund something, you expect a return on investment. So
Prince, sorry, could you repeat why we were pissed off at Uduasha again?
Yeah, so Uduasha, basically, like the technology is from Akoros, but it's expensive, and the Uduashan great houses were like very generously like, we're going to fund this for Kethris, for the Kethrisi gentleman class, and was like, we'll buy all this equipment for us, and you just have to pay us later. And then when pay later came about, many of the landowners could no longer afford their tenant farmers. Like, first they got more efficient, and then that efficiency became mandatory, and so
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the gentleman class are being squeezed from above as well. So it's not directly their fault. Maybe even your landlord was apologetic about this. Like, I can't afford to keep you on my property anymore. I'm sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's probably House Annexus, to be honest. I can't, because that's another thing. Like the noble house is doing it, but like there are 5 noble houses and they're very different.
Yeah.
It sounds like a House Annexus scheme.
Yeah. So, sure thing. House Annexus have been doing this, like, lending shenanigans.
And the best part of it being House Annexus, which is the house of secrecy and trickery and deceit, is that it's not official that they're the ones, right? They're the ones who set it all up. We just assume it is. It probably is, but like that's just their
Maybe
demo.
it's not.
Yeah. All you really know is that the gentlemen in Kethris are suddenly indebted to the upper classes in Uduasha. Who exactly is behind that? It's probably House Annexus, but
Yeah.
One of the upper classes probably has an access.
Yeah, it probably is via the Uduashan Bank, even the Majesty Bank, which is located in Pasarhantu. So, even which specific bank put you out of business, because they're the guys who gave this generous business loan to your landlord, and then the landlord couldn't repay the generous business loan.
Yep.
So
some very nice men from the Majesty Bank offered to help our landlord to kick us out because, obviously the landlord didn't want to do it, and they charge a very reasonable sum for this service.
Yeah.
And as a bonus, a bonus for this particular world building feature, it also gives us a very obvious score to run at some point.
Indeed.
Yes.
You're not wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is it also a Blades in the Dark thing that radiant energy also comes from basically genetically engineered trees, or is that a gentleman bastards thing?
I think it is a Blades thing in that there are radiant energy plants that generate that like light because they are fed from like some kind of electroplasm. But basically, you should definitely not eat them, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you should use them for light and then eat the plants that are like using that light to grow. But if you eat the radiant plants, bad things will happen to you. Because while oil in our world is dinosaur, like or dead dinosaurs, in this world it's dead people, and ghosts do actually exist. So
Yeah, it just gives
indeed.
me like because we have glowing trees that are a little bit like radiant energy trees. It gives me this image of
Yeah,
the
maybe-
natural like mangroves being replaced by like radiant energy monocultures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
oh, that's really good.
maybe the reason why the mangroves glow and also are connected to your families is they are literally your ancestors. Like when people in Ketris
Oh,
die,
course.
they
shit.
bond with the land. But bonded
Nice.
ancestors are much less efficient than just imported enslaved ghosts. So
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah.
my god,
Because
that's really good.
Yeah.
this really has to tie, because this ties in with another idea, like how like we're outside the lightning barriers in Kethris,
Mhm.
we're outside the Udu. So, but like it's okay because these are our ancestors. Yes, okay, so they're a little bit scary sometimes, but like,
Yeah.
why would our ancestors hurt us?
Yeah, you obviously you must venerate the trees. The trees can be vengeful. If the trees are disrespectful, they can, or if you disrespect the trees, they will do terrible things to you. But they also do protect you. So
Mm.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Oh,
So the
this is why
haunted.
the fishing works here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Absolutely.
Like,
So.
yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. Yeah.
So yeah, you have a literal bond with the land going back generations, and when you die, it's a big deal that you become part of the farm in a very
Yes.
literal sense. Like your ghost guards it against hostile ghosts.
Hell yeah.
So when your dog dies and someone says, "Oh, it's living in a nice farm upstate," in this
Mhm.
case, it's very
Yes.
literally doing that,
It's
right?
literally is. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Or well, it was until mechanized
Until-
farming uprooted the mangrove
Yes.
trees. Very good. So that establishes a little bit about the home that we have lost, which is these. Yeah, I imagine there are forests there as well, since I think Emma, your concept was a character who is from the forest. Maybe you were from the literal forest. I think that adds an extra sadness to it.
Yes, it works very well. And
Yeah.
it adds a lot of like layers of ideas to who this could be.
I also like the idea that, like, in first they say the Deathlands are like, we imagine them as like vast howling desert, right? And in Iruvia, we imagine that again it's a desert that we're imagining, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, somehow I don't know if it rains here, but regardless of whether it does rain or not, there is greenery, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, Tetris may be like it may look to an outsider like forlorn swamps, but it's more alive. It's
Yep.
I imagine it still is, just because the world is generally dark and bleak. It's probably still, haunting, foreboding mangrove more than it's like,
Oh yeah,
a
for
beautiful
sure.
sunny meadow. But
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
it's
if
home
it was-
and it's alive and it has much more character.
Yeah. If it was an island paradise, then it wouldn't be Kethris, right? It would just be a tourist resort for rich people.
Mangroves at night are spooky as fuck.
Yeah, I believe this. I believe this.
Excellent. So this is your home. This this mangrove area
Was our home?
was your home.
No, it's still our home. Just because we're not. Yeah, just because we're not there anymore. I feel like this is an important debate, right? Like, are we still like yearning to go back, or have we accepted that like it's never gonna happen? I think that's very tricky.
Yeah.
No.
You see, they promised you jobs in Uduasha where you could make money. You could even get rich, and maybe some of you even believe that.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple of people who are like, we're gonna make that money, and then we're gonna go home, we're gonna buy that land back.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now we live in Bunderwest in the goddamn hospitality ghetto.
Yes.
What a nice thing.
I gotta say, like, terrible. Like, I mean, absolutely what that would actually be cool, right? Like, awful.
Yep. And so I know that some of you have like character concepts well, all of you have character concepts on a vague state, but are we ready to move on to talk a little bit about who we'll be playing as individuals? Having
I think-
established, like, where do we come from?
We could do that, or should we start with what kind of crew is this?
Oh yeah, that's...
Yeah, maybe that's a better idea. Like, not do the full crew creation, but what kind of crew?
So I was thinking Bravos makes sense for us in terms of we are a group of people who are comfortable with violence and comfortable with enacting it in order to achieve our goals, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like seemed the most natural. And I know we were discussing, or I know that Zoheb like mentioned vigilantes, but I don't want the sense of, well, we're actually doing the right thing, right? I want that to be like
ambiguous. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Bravos is a strong option. I feel like it could be Bravos. It could also be Hawkers, or Smugglers, or maybe Shadows. But Bravos is certainly the obvious choice. Bravos being, just for people who are not familiar with Blades, Bravos being your crew of people who rely on ass kicking as their means of getting by.
Yeah.
If it's Bravos, I immediately wonder if we became more prominent and like more main character-y as soon as the original the School of the Rising Moon was started falling apart.
Yes.
Yeah, which has fallen apart because its leader Ramu the Golden has died, which happened in season 1. And I think probably it is not the case that you are necessarily tied to Ramu the Golden. I don't imagine that you are formally trained in Uduasha's Rising Moon's school. It's just that you come from the same place as where it was invented, and it's based on kind of the same fighting techniques that people had in Kethris, which historically were, sometimes farmers need to defend themselves against bandits or whatnot, and that's where these fighting styles came from. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also think that like because the vast majority of those people like died, so did the identity in many ways of that school, right? So there's also this sense of opportunism in that now we could redefine that in whatever way we find politically convenient. And I kind of I like that in that it's ambiguous, right? It could be we are picking up the banner of something that was broken in Uduasha in order to rebuild it even stronger. Or it could be, hey, here's a convenient symbol that we can repurpose in order to make some quick cash.
Yeah. Absolutely. This is something we will find out in play, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. It sounds like everyone is on board with Bravos. Does anyone want to veto this idea? Or are we going with we are violent people?
I think I'll do that.
Yeah. I think
does not mean that every solution will be solved with violence, but it does signal that our characters are, at least to some extent, people capable of violence when need be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with Bravos, the only thing that I have is I suppose this could apply to any kind of cruise type, really. It's what is the ethos? What is the purpose? The kind of organizing concept, I suppose. And we can find that out through play, but I wouldn't mind a little bit of discussion already.
I think
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying that I guess the ethos is more kind of just a product of what our situation is, which is that we have come to this town, and it's again in a part of town that is dangerous. And I think that if we're doing anything, we might have started off as we were just trying to make ends meet with taking on some shady jobs, but we soon learned that we need to be able to protect ourselves against other gangs, and then that kind of becomes our thing. It's more of just necessity to being able to fight. At what point, because we don't know the town very well, right? So it's hard for us to be other things. Violence is kind of the only thing you know how to do, what you can default to and do. But I don't know, but I don't know if that's like a very interesting.
I think it works. I also want to throw
Yeah.
out that you are the people capable of violence in your little community.
Yeah.
But you are not the only people in your community, right? So there's probably been plenty of, in the backstory of this crew before they become proper scoundrels, proper heroes. There's probably plenty of just like, some guy gets robbed or picked on or whatnot, and you guys have to step in and be like, give that back.
Yeah.
The people trample all over your friends and family, and someone's got to stand up for them.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make us more vigilantes, though?
I
Well, I
like the
think
idea.
the basic, like the archetypal vibe of most Bravo crews is that they're the protection money guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also like not only do they protect themselves, but they are also like at least nominally or officially the people protecting and shaping order in their little neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
And-
whether that is true or not, is kind of
Yeah.
a question you can explore. But I think that's a question we can explore in the story itself.
Yeah. As a Bravos crew, absolutely. And I mean, a theme of Blades in the Dark tends to be that you very seldom escape the cycles of power.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like something I want to add to that is that like I didn't really bother with this, but in this group, in this game, having a ward boss demand money constantly
Yes.
is also like an important like reason that we are doing this, right? Like the reason why the protection money guys is that actually there's another protection money guy demanding money from us so he can protect us from other bigger protection money guys, right?
And I mean, this is how the crowded gang districts work too, in that you see yourself as like, we are protecting our people, but to everyone else you're just a bunch of violent bastards.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Know who our word boss is? This guy. This is a quote from the Bunderwest district, right up. Sordar Basran.
Mhm.
Oh damn.
Current Sardar or Warlord of Falcon Perch, elected for life by the Farisi and answerable only to the noble houses of Uduasha. Do you think
This
he
is
is your
terrible.
landlord?
Indirectly.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, you don't go see him and pay him directly, but there are people coming by and extracting money from you for all the kind hospitality that Uduasha provides.
Mm-hmm. Especially if we are a gang of fighters, and this is basically the armed police, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it makes sense. Pay a little money for them to look aside.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of thing.
But also, make sure like this is very much like The Godfather in that when his daughter gets married, you send him gifts.
Mm-hmm.
When he falls ill, you don't get to go see him, but you better show up at his house, to be like, oh my god, I hope he's okay. That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
I think the important thing here is that his tags are old, decadent, and brooding. If it were upstanding, military man, loyal, I think this would be a very different relationship, and he would not be a word boss.
Yeah. Makes sense. So we have this old guy who commands the local police, who demands protection from money from you.
Yeah,
Well,
the local
kind of the
military / police. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. Now I think we are ready to get to the characters then, if we have some sense of.
Briefly, I'll touch back on what kind of crew we are. And so, like, the reason I suggested vigilantes is that, to my mind, it's like if we were vigilantes, we would be basically bravos who are vigilantes. And if we're bravos, we're basically bravos who are vigilantes. So it's kind of like neither of them are like we're the good guys, but it's like more like we feel like we are to an extent.
Yeah. But I think Bravos is just easier.
Better, yes.
It also puts the focus more traditionally on money. So yeah, mostly Vigilantes is less about money, and I think it makes sense that you guys care a lot about money, particularly if some in your community, maybe none of the player characters, but definitely people in the community are like, we just need to make a lot of money so we can go buy our land back.
Yep.
I think also from the protection standpoint, like I guess like there's the angle of physically protecting our community, but also there's the angle of okay, we need to make money so that we can have people in our community, like I don't know, like have medical supplies, send kids to school, whatever it is, right? So I'm sure we feel like we're noble even when we are trampling on someone else.
The other thing we need to do, and why we need to kick ass, there's a bunch of fucking farmers in this district, and we need that land.
Yeah.
Man.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think that's a
yeah.
very different vibe, though. Is that what we're going for? Because that makes, like...
Yeah.
I think no. I think what it should be is there should be one person on the crew aggressively saying, "We can't just sit around here.
Yeah.
We need
We'll
to
find
take
out.
what."
I think
Yeah.
precisely what
Yeah.
the goals of the crew are. I think they can differ, but the idea for now is, you need money for the community. Maybe you want money so that you can buy your old land back. Maybe some of you dream of buying/acquiring new land. But I think it's clear, at least at the start of this, that you would love to be farmers again.
Yeah.
We also just know, as we are telling this story, we know that is probably not going to happen. It is,
Yeah,
but we will see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm on
Okay.
board.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a bit about our characters then.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Klow, Bolobir.
Yes. Yes. I am playing Bidrohi, who is that is literally his name. It means rebel in Bengali. So it's the title of an amazing poem by Kazi Nazrul Islam, national poet of Bangladesh.
Sorry, if we are actually going into discussing characters, I would like us also to mention that Prince gave us homework, which I presume we all did. And that
Oh yes.
as a result of doing homework, we should mention why and how some of our decisions are like being shaped by that.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Everyone has been given a poem, and in this case, it's the poem Bidrohi, which is also the name of the character.
Yes,
Mhm.
because it's a perfectly good name. So the way I'm actually imagining him is, so I've been thinking back and forth on like what kind of person I want to play, and I thought about kind of like like a bit of like a Pablo Escobar level kind of crime figure who like kind of like the man of the people of his area sort of thing, but actually a brutal crime lord, perhaps someone who's like a rebel organizer. I thought about those archetypes, but like I think what I was really drawn to at the end of the day was playing a duelist, which is a playbook I wrote and which I've messed around a little bit in like some one shots and so on, but I've never actually played a full campaign as a duelist, and I've always wanted to. And since we talked about playing the sword school, I figured this would be the perfect time. So I'm imagining Bidrohi as a fairly sort of archetypical idea of like the kind of person that I imagined when I was writing the duelist, like very brash, a handsome young man, brash, bold, daring, doesn't really give a shit, enjoys the finer things in life, likes showing off his skills in swordsmanship, very much a lover and a fighter. I think both things are integral to how he sees himself. And I think the interesting thing about him is that he's going to be, I don't think, so depending on how long it's been since like the Kethrisi have been displaced, and they've been living in like large numbers in Uduasha, I think it's entirely possible he has been born and raised entirely in Uduasha. He's never even seen these like ancestral mangrove trees and all those things that maybe some of the other characters really have deep emotional ties to. Uduasha is his city. He's a city guy, and he it's not he sees like how his people are treated, and it of course bothers him very much because it kind of like, I guess selfishly, it kind of like stops him from accessing the sort of life that he wants. But like it's more about here and now. We have to build our lives here, and I think I like the idea of him having been Ramu's disciple, like
Mm.
everyone who's a duelist, who wants to like become it's very much like based in like South Asian like sort of martial arts traditions. You have your guru, and it's like a deeply devoted like sort of like relationship. And Ramu's gone, so who's going to teach him now? Who's going to take care of people? Maybe Bidrohi is good enough to kind of step into Ramu's shoes himself. Who knows? Even though he's like 19 or some shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
So I imagine that your family was among the earlier waves to be expelled from Kethris then, since a lot of the other people are newer. But not everyone got displaced at once, right? So
Yeah. I was thinking that it's an ongoing thing, right? Which explains why Zoheb's character has like their family was displaced at least 19 years ago, while my character has only just come into Uluwasha. Like I guess some farmers were more stubborn in moving than others.
And some
Yeah.
landlords were less efficient about kicking people out than others also. I think.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Makes
so
sense.
two things here, which is I think a character like this will definitely have family. I don't know what the nature of that would be, whether or not it's going to be entirely NPCs or someone wants to, I don't know, play a parent of mine or something. I'm perfectly open to those relationships depending on what you guys are thinking. But I think it's definitely going to be a situation where like there's going to be some kicking against like traditional boundaries, like perhaps, I don't know, maybe his parents want him to, assuming they're NPCs, want him to keep his head down, or like perhaps his parents want him to really focus on like traditional Catrisi culture, but he's all about, he's making his own thing. That's
Yep.
one dynamic. I'm perfectly, so yeah, invitation to be my family, as it were, once more. The second thing is that I see this guy as like a romantic in like the fullest sense of the word, like high ideals and all that, but also like I think it's very easy to play like this sort of like romance kind of slightly sex-based character in like a sort of like, oh, like he'll have sex with anyone, he has like no real loyalties and all that, that kind of archetype. But in fact I kind of like the idea of like him really believing like in high romantic ideals, and maybe he's like looking for his one true love. So his vice is lovers, and I've just left a question mark there because I don't know if he starts the game with a lover or not. But I think that's going to be very important to his arc.
Yep.
And I like the idea of his pursuit of love actually involving quite heavily people that are not in his social class.
Yeah. I have a suggestion for this, but why
Yes.
are you not avenging Ramu? Because I think avenging Ramu is not where we want this story to go. So like, why are you and the other disciples seeing his death as, tragic but not something to avenge?
I think it's because the reason Ramu was my teacher was because he was the one who was willing. He was the guy. It's not like there's tons of other sword masters that are open for the Kethrisi. In fact, I think there's like two sword schools in Udwasha, right? There's the Falling Star, the Red Sashes, as it were, in the main Blades game, and they're like elitist as fuck, right? No Kethrisi is ever going to get in there.
Yeah.
And so if you're interested in sword fighting and like the elegant art of it, not just like shivs in the dark, right? Blades in the dark.
See what he did that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go.
Yes. Ramu was the guy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he invented the Rising Moon style. I don't know, right? So I had to go to him, but like he was also a fucking asshole.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, you're an asshole. You got yourself killed pointlessly. Like, what the fuck was that about? Almost everyone died. No. This means that, yes, I have taken what I need from you, and now I can do better. Kind of vibe.
Yep. Makes sense. All right. Very good. Aadiyat, do you want to go next with your?
Sure.
And your poem was about a Chola king. So I'm curious to see what you will do with this.
Yeah, so my assigned homework was the poem Patina Palai. I'm butchering the pronunciation, I'm sure.
It's in Tamil, yes.
Yeah, and the section of the poem that Prince gave me it recounts this Chola king who was imprisoned by his enemies, and he grew strong in the cage like a tiger cub, and made his escape. And this by climbing up the high walls of the prison. And so I've decided to go with a character who similarly feels caged, but in this case, the cage is Uzwasha, right? And he's seething and he's growing strong, and he wants to break out or at least lead his people, gain freedom for his people. And also the imagery of this Chola king escaping from prison also gave me the idea of playing a character who would also similarly scale walls and stuff. So I've also gone for a swordsman character, but mine will be more sneaky with the grappling hooks, like climbing high places, jumping off. But that kind of thing.
Sounds
And
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also just what the discussion we had a few minutes ago about mangrove trees will explain why he does this, because as a kid he used to climb up these trees and swing from the vines and all that kind of thing. So that's his style. And I also said that, and also this kind of thing also reminded me of the game Sekiro, and the main character has a cool prosthetic arm. So I also want a cool prosthetic arm, and I think what would have happened is, as we were saying, that some of the farmers would have been more stubborn, and some of the landlords would have been more inefficient in removing them. And I think there was something happened where there was a protest or something, went out of control. The heavy troops were sent in to expel the farmers, and that's where he lost his arm. And they were probably probably as they were fleeing anyway, and having come to Uluwasha as an injured swordsman, we have established in Uluwasha that there is a character who is a smartcraft engineer and helps the downtrodden. So I think Miraz is where the person who would have fitted him up with a prosthetic arm.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Nice.
A good callback to the last
season
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, not really the prosthetic arm, but you were talking about this poem about the Chula King pacing like a tiger, right? You know what lives in mangrove forests?
Yes, a tiger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you like to make that a thing?
Yeah, I was thinking the other name that came to mind was putting Sher somewhere in his name, which is Persian for lion or tiger, and we have a lot of Shere some things in Asia, right? So he could be, I don't know what, Shere Kethrisa. No, that doesn't roll off the tongue. I'll come up with a name. I'll work it in somewhere. I'll work in the tiger somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your alias can just be Cher.
Yeah.
But maybe not Cher, because that sounds like Cher.
Yeah.
He's shared as something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I will say, sorry, just briefly about prosthetics, is that there was another person who explicitly designed some incredible prosthetics due to the interference of the temple. And I think it's super interesting that for whatever reason your character has not got her help, right? It's Miraz who's helped her, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no reason why the Kethrisi should care about the wax workers of Uduasha either.
Yeah.
They're old and rich, but they're also just rich. So
yes.
Oh yeah.
There was
this
a
come up.
Chandler.
Yeah, no, this did come up when Zoheb asked me why not waxwork, and I think it's because my character doesn't feel any connection to Uduasha. It doesn't matter for him whether it's waxwork or prosthetic. Whatever's available, whatever is effective, he's just gonna go for that.
Yeah, exactly. In the previous campaign, we had this theme of modernization versus tradition, right? But the Kethrisi, your characters, don't necessarily care about that. This is much more about rich and poor. Who cares if the rich are new money or old money, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let me become rich, and then I can worry about people who think I'm not old rich enough, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly. So, moving on to Emma. The Day of Naming was your poem.
The Day of Naming was my poem.
What do you have in mind?
Full of imagery of living in the forests, or the forests going on without interference from human hands, but also beginning with the question: can the Empire acquiesce if insurrection makes the vagrant and untitled valiant? So I think I am going to make someone who is vagrant and untitled. I'm imagining kind of roguish, picaresque character, a professional guest perhaps, who goes from place to place, helps out around the house a little bit, does chores, little jobs that need doing. But in general is also comfortable existing in the wilderness in a kind of bushcraft style. Except that's what she was. Because now she too has been displaced to Uduasha because, well, there's not a lot of work to be had, itinerant or not, in this new in this new order that has arisen in Gethris.
Yep.
So she has to come and live with her community where she has to basically follow where they went. Yeah, I'm mentioning roguish, stealthy. I think where Aadiyat's character is prowl, she is more finesse. Where Aadiyat's character is Sekiro stealthy, she is more Hitman stealthy. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm imagining being a professional guest, knowing how to get into places, how to exist in places that are unfamiliar to you, is a useful skill set here in Uduasha. But I don't think she is entirely comfortable with living in this city.
Yeah. And you are using the Walker playbook, which is a playbook that I designed, so I'm flattered and interested to see it in play.
Yeah, I'm very curious. The abilities and stuff look very cool.
Fucking publish these playbooks so people can download
Okay,
them.
yes, I will publish these playbooks.
Finish the book.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Every session until it happens.
Okay. Yes. All right, very cool. So, mysterious vagrant in the city.
Yes, but I will express the desire for her to already know these people quite well and to have relationships with them. Actually, Klow, I might take you up on being your family.
Okay. Would you also like to be my long lost cousin?
Uh-huh. I think
Something more.
Something more, I think. Something close.
Twins.
Uh-huh.
Twins.
How old is your character, Emma? Like, are we talking same generation
sorry.
or above it?
Yeah. Can't be twins because
I am
you are clearly
imagining
older than 19.
they might be the same generation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can also adjust a little bit. Like I can also, I don't know, have come
But
to.
it depends because it must have been someone who was pretty established living in Gethris.
Yeah.
So it may be that she is like a generation older as well. She can be an aunt.
I have a suggestion for like a possible way to do it. Although it's a potentially grim subject, but maybe you're half siblings, and the reason the vagrant is a vagrant is you were born out of wedlock. So that's like a thing, like you can't inherit because your parents weren't married. Then you could also have been, separated for a time.
I am also happy to like adjust my character a little bit because there's another version of it that's perfectly good where I'm a little older than 19 but still an impetuous youth.
I kind of like the idea that your characters are young though. Like
Yeah. My character wasn't gonna be old either. I would have said, in fact, like probably my age. Which I mean, I don't know if 30 isn't old, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not Abbas old anyway, so it's a contrast to the last.
It's a massive gulf from 19.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
But that's good, I think, right? Like we have the young brash one.
No, I'm wondering if my character is older and she might have had a chance at inheriting before you were born, Klow.
Yeah. That's a cool thing as well. Yeah. Like, now there's a legitimate child, so now you can't inherit.
And it doesn't have to be the kind of easy adversarial relationship that like immediately comes to mind there. I'm actually interested in being much more friendly than you'd expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now there's nothing to inherit anyway, so.
No, doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you're half siblings. Do you share a mother or a father, you think?
At least you knew and remember something that could have been inherited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you think you share the same mother or the same father then?
Emma, what do you think?
Yeah. Just thinking. I think same mother makes more sense.
Yeah, because I already played a character who had a very deep relationship with his dad. It would be nice to see a different parent.
Okay. Yeah, so your characters have a mother. She presumably lives in Uduasha as well, then. So
Yep.
it's an interesting character.
I will add mom as a character, as a contact.
Yeah.
Mom. We can
Excellent.
we can discuss this mom together, Emma.
Yeah, very cool. Let's introduce our last character before we start tying these characters together. Tree. Yes. I gave you an epic poem about space and God and the meaning of life, and I'm very curious to see what you did with that.
So it is Harry Martinson's Aadiyat, which I am like working my way through. There's a lot in it, and there's a lot about how to deal with realizing that what you think is happening is completely different when you actually like confront it, right? And how like it's about this generation ship that goes off into space and then misses the stop that it was supposed to make and just keeps going, right? And there is a lot in it about how to understand profound divinity, like something completely outside your experience, when you are also experiencing something that like you were just like looking into the unknown and you don't know what's coming next. Which you also gave each of us an instrument, and like my instrument was the lyre, and I just thought about like the first line of the Iliad, which is Singo Muse, right? And it was very much the same vibe of something very big and unknowable is about to happen, and how are you going to deal with that knowledge, right? So I am going to play, unlike everybody else who's decided on a playbook that already exists, I have named my playbook The Idolater, because I am going to create an idol and I'm going to call it my god, and this god is going to come and save us. Me. Itself. Something, right? I wrote as its description a sword by the name of Delight. This is a one-person in joke only for me. I might go into it later, but right now the reason that I'm saying this is so that when other players look at my character sheet, they're not like, why the fuck is that then?
Okay, so there's two. I have to interrupt. So your items. You have a two-load item called Fine.
Yes.
A one-load item called Fine.
Yes.
A one-load item called Form 43, Section 7. How fucking big is this form?
Oh yeah.
How heavy are these fortune-telling cards? Why do these cost load?
Yes, yeah, they do cost load for a reason.
Okay.
The thing that doesn't cost load is a voice for song. I haven't decided what my fine items are going to be yet, basically.
Yeah.
The reason that both the form and the fortune-telling cards cost load is that my character is very old.
Okay.
And I think that like even like it's the kind of thing where it's not, the load here is not just the physical weight. It's like keeping track of it, knowing where it is. Where are my cards? They're in my pocket. And I think like when you get to a certain age, it's easy to either have like a routine where that routine makes sure you know where everything is, or you get help, right? And my character has neither. My character just has to rely on that memory, and we'll see how that goes. Same for the form.
For some reason, now when you said my character is very old, my spontaneous idea was, so you're Klow and Emma's grandmother, and their mother is your daughter. But I don't know if that's the way you want to spin this.
I think it is probably more distant than that. I think it's probably like someone who is a cousin of like one of their grandparents, right?
You are more an elder of the community than you are directly related to them. Yeah.
And I think the reason for this is that like I wasn't a farmer, and I wasn't like, my family wasn't a family that was farming. The way that I imagine this, and this is fairly common, right? Like there's a bunch of communities that kind of live together, and my family was mostly fisher people who fished in the ocean and it was easy to fish there because the mangroves kept the more dangerous things in the ocean from like coming into the shallows, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like a key reason that I in Uduasha is that the mangroves that belonged to my family got cut down. And I think, in fact, some of these mangroves got sent back to Uduasha to make furniture out of. And there is a kind of almost perverse attraction to, right? Oh my god, like this is, and like once you kill the mangrove, it's not like it's got any of the ghost energy really in it anymore, right? Now it's just a piece of wood, but it's still a piece of wood that somebody's using as like a magnificent desk, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like something that my character kind of wants to do is sacrifice that in some way in the production of their god, right? Like use what has been ended and the ending of that in the new thing.
Okay, so you're starting out with like track down some guy's writing desk. That's the first on your to-do list.
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So I think that like one of the reasons, so I did want to play someone either very young or very old, because I think the decision to be like, I'm going to build a god either comes out of like complete idealism or complete cynicism, right? It's either nothing can stop me, I'm just going to do this, or literally everything that has gone wrong is going to go wrong, I'm going to do it anyway, right? And I think that like my character has probably seen so much of the community, their culture, their family just like been ground into fine dust. And I think they're also recent to Uduasha in that they were still in Kethris, and that specific like part of the mangroves, whatever, have very recently been cut down. And that's why they've realized, like, I mean, there's no choice anymore. There's nothing here for you anymore. You have to go back, or like go forward, even, right?
Yeah. It's very funny. Like I literally yesterday read a book about an 85-year-old woman and a 6-year-old girl and their relationship to the sea. And when you said very old or very young, very idealistic or very cynical, it evoked that a lot. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think. No, I was gonna say I think that like I'm not sure like of their name, pronouns, look, that kind of thing. The more I speak of them as they, the more it kind of carves a groove in the mind. But that doesn't mean anything. And I think that like the main thing that like they are in the community to do is that they are the person who kind of like remembers, or like there must be a community of these people, right? Like, but like they are one of the people who remembers. And they're one of the people whose like quiet, seething anger is motivating the more able people to be like, oh my, like this is a living sign of what we have lost, like even now, right? So like I imagine that if Bidrohi meets my character, you like that's a very immediate kind of like catalyst for action.
Interesting.
But I also think that it's, I mean, like they're not like one-dimensional necessarily. So like right now, what they do to hang out, what they do as their vice is that they fish in the reservoir, which is where the massive river that flows through the Washa kind of drains into, right? And there's a little jetty, and they know someone there. So and like to be honest, I could change some of the load as well. It doesn't have to be this. It's just that like I needed to type something in, and I kind of zeroed in on the idea that like my character was just like the load was also a recognition of like how difficult some things are, right? Like fictionally.
Another fun idea related to that is a fine coracle.
Yes, incredible. What a fun word. Yeah.
What you're going to do with that, I don't know, but that's your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and the last thing that I will say is that like I have zeroed in on my special ability, which is another version of Occultist. So Vickers, who is Prince's character, she took as an edited version of the base ability Occultist as her last ability. And following on from that, I'm taking again the same ability with a little change for my first one. And I'm going to call it Theologist. Which is that I know the secret ways to study the names of ancient powers, forgotten gods, or demons. Once you've studied one, you get an extra die to speak it for your own purposes. And what this means is that I understand that naming the god is a key step in making it. And I will, one way or another, name it into being.
Excellent.
Can you study something that doesn't exist? Yes, you can.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's my character.
Excellent.
Okay.
Sounds good. So yeah, this has been our introduction of the characters, and I suppose we will start off next session with then nailing down the details, like a little bit about special abilities and what the crew has and so on, what your lair is. But then we will get started on the story.
Just one
Great.
quick thing, Tree. When you were saying, I think I missed the part where you were talking about like your motivation for making the god. Like, is this a personal kind of thing that you're doing, or is it more of a giving people a new symbol to rally around?
That's a good question. I think what it is that so my character is very angry, but is not necessarily purely altruistic. And I think that the god is about something that they think if they do will change things. Whether that is for the better or not is not clear. Whether that is for other people or not is not clear. I think that like my character could very well be doing this in a way where whatever happens after the god exists, that's up to the divine. That's not my job, right? But I'm not asking for help necessarily. Whether I get help, yeah, we'll see.
I have an important question to follow up on this. You're making a new god. What
Yes.
did the Kethrisi worship?
The
mangroves.
Yeah. And ancestor worship.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
That
But
actually makes the idea to make a god even cooler, because you don't have a tradition of having gods, so it's just you're approaching this out of whole cloth.
I've observed that in Uduasha there are a lot of these gods. Many of them, no idea what these people do, how they do it, whether they have any power.
Makes perfect sense. We don't have our ancestors anymore. What do the Uduashans have? They have gods. Okay, we need a god for ourselves.
And I will make one that's better than all of theirs. Okay.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And this is again why like I'm chasing the remnants of that, right? And I imagine that like there are definitely traditions of like there are some very large trees or like very large mangroves that were specifically like protected and thought divine. There's been like some very dangerous scuffles over the threatening cutting down of some of them. Some of them have been cut down. Some of them have avoided it so far, that kind of thing. But certainly one of the, I think this makes sense that like one of the one that was cut down that was very important to my character, that's happened very recently. And so they have come to Uduasha in order, like chasing that.
Makes sense. So, okay. Everyone else is just kind of living in Uduasha, and you are here specifically in pursuit of planks.
Yes. I have now just completely and totally realized my character. So my character is going to be called Saida Ankatam, and she will use she, they pronouns, and she's going to be old. The key thing is she's going to be old.
Yep.
Saida is a risky name.
Oh, why do you say that?
Because it refers to a female and descendant of the prophet.
Yeah, that's kind of why I liked it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, speaking for all Muslims worldwide, I can say that I don't have a problem with it.
Exactly.
Great. I'm glad. I liked that it was like very much a like there is divinity there, right? But it is somewhat borrowed divinity in that it is like she's a descendant of the prophet. She is not the prophet herself, right?
I feel like this character is so silly that it can't be. I mean, like what you're trying to do is, I can't imagine like anyone.
Oh yeah, who's gonna take this seriously? Yeah.
Yep.
Like
okay.
Oh well, one more thing though. Sorry, I get it. What's the form for? Like, what's the form? What was it?
Yeah, why do you have a form?
Oh, why do I have a form? Yes, the form is very important because the form permits me to go into the well.
Okay.
And the reason for this, I think, is that my plan is when I get this wood, I'm going to burn the wood, right? But I'm going to burn the wood in a specific way so that when that occurs, something divine comes out.
Okay,
Because
so
we've established that that there is something there, right?
yeah, so you have official permission to access the fallen star at the bottom of the well at the center
Yes.
of Uduasha.
It
How
is
did
not
you
clear
get
how I have-
permission
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
that?
Great question. Not immediately clear. Is it a House Anixis ploy? Perhaps. Probably linked to whoever my best friend is going to be, right? Whoever
Okay.
on that list is my close
We will
friend.
find out. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have.
like,
So,
I'm
like,
gonna-
the first thing you've done in Uduasha is engineer access to the fallen star in the
No.
well at the bottom of the city.
I
Lovely.
have understood that while there are 1,000 gods in Uduasha, there is only one power, and that is
Yeah.
the bureaucracy.
Uh-huh. Very fair.
And
I
so,
thought
you know.
you were going to say the star, but no, it's the bureaucracy.
Yeah, that is the bureaucracy. Like, can the star produce the god for me?
Uh-huh.
Yes. But
Uh-huh.
what's going to let me get that? The bureaucracy. So let's be
Yeah.
real. It's the bureaucracy.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Before we all
Um,
separate, I want everyone to admire Aadiyat's character portrait.
Yes, it is a magnificent character portrait.
Would you
Uh-huh.
like to describe
Very-
it for the listeners at home?
Yes,
No.
it is.
Yes.
I don't think you should.
It is a 3D image of a tiger face.
It is a Khajiit from
Yes.
the Elder Scrolls, is what it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
Okay, so one of your fine items now is your fine tiger mask. Clearly,
Yes. Yeah.
you use it to
have
conceal
it
your
now.
identity.
Yeah. I like. No, I was gonna do that. Yeah, I was gonna have a
Uh-huh.
tiger mask because I want to play like. The more I thought about this character with like who's only known by his nickname, which is
Uh-huh.
share something like. I mean, he has to have a tiger mask, and
Uh-huh.
I couldn't find a picture of someone with a
Uh-huh.
goofy tiger mask. All the pictures had goofy ones, and I thought if I was gonna go for a goofy tiger-looking thing, then there's only one goofy tiger-looking thing
Uh-huh.
that I could go for, and
Yeah, absolutely.
Only
Okay.
one thing, and I have no authority here, but I must insist on this. This cannot be a fine tiger mask. It can only be a tiger mask.
That's fair, actually.
This isn't
I
my. This is a placeholder. This is my final choice.
This ends your final four.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Excellent. So you have a tiger mask, which is maybe based off a tiger. You like killed yourself. You're very badass, but sadly you're not a great taxidermist. So
Is that like the Swedish line?
yes. Very cool.
Nice.
Okay.
Good. Good.
Okay.
Wonderful. See you guys around.
Yeah. I guess
Excellent.
we will wrap it up here. So I'm excited for the next session and
Yes.
look forward to it.
See you next week.
Yeah. See you next week. For now, here closes the door of the House of Endings. See you next time. Here close the doors to the House of Endings. Those who dwell within are Zoheb, called Klow, Aadiyat, called Zoheb, Soumithri, called Tree, and Emma. I have been Prince, your host. Our city of Uduasha is based on Blades in the Dark by John Harper and Evil Hat Productions, with special thanks to Johnstone Metzger. Follow us on Twitter or support us on kofi.com/Desperate Attune. If you want to engage further with us, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/Desperate Attune, where you will get our newsletter, extra content, and updates from Uduasha.